Brought to you by CCT. Hello viewers, I'm Ron Grant and you're watching 284 Media out of nature's little secrets in the British Virgin Islands. In a day and age where the preservation of history, heritage, and culture are a rare commodity, one Virgin Islander has found a creative way of keeping Virgin Islands history and heritage alive. Gabrielle Skelton, also known as Gabby, not only channels creativity for adults and children, but showcases key features of the British Virgin Islands. Everything about this series is uniquely BVI, from its content to the illustrations to the use of territorial colors such as red, blue, white, yellow, and green. The coloring book series was created to preserve Virgin Islands history, heritage, and culture, and I'm so honored to be joined by Gabby herself, the author, as well as Mrs. Bernadine Louis, Director of Virgin Island Studies at the HLSCC Stout Community College. Today we talk all things Color Me BVI. Stay tuned for this 284 Media exclusive after a word from our sponsors.
I love you, Penny. Run, Forrest, run! Move it. Man, I'm sick of being in this house. I just want to go to the beach for all go just one day and gather to the garden. I'm sick of being in this house.
Having withdrawals from being stuck in the house for so long? Are you tired of looking at your old photos and daydreaming about your next vacation? Well, BVI Staycation is back and there's so much to choose from. For more information on upcoming deals, follow us on Facebook at BVI Staycation. Get ready, BVI, for an adventure in paradise. It's time to vacation where we live.
Viewers, welcome back. You're watching 284 Media. Gabby and Mrs. Bernadine Louis, welcome to 284 Media, and thank you so much for taking this opportunity with me. Now, we are so excited because you ladies have partnered together to do something very, very phenomenal. Gabby, tell me first of all, before we get into any of the details for Color Me BVI, the first edition that is, what made you want to come up with this concept?
Okay, first I would like to say thank you for having me here on the show. The reason that I came up with this concept is that I'm a proud BVI Islander and I wanted to do something for my country. And I wanted it to be able to do things with children where adults and children could interact and get to learn more about the BVI and the culture and the heritage and the history of the BVI. So I sat down and tried to figure out what would be able to get those two groups together, adults and children. And for me, I like coloring, I like drawing, and from a child and on all the way up to an adult. And I decided, okay, I think I'll try a coloring book that will specifically be about our history, our culture, and our BVI.
Phenomenal. Now, I know a lot of adults love coloring as well, so this book not only caters to children, but adults. Tell me a little bit about the time frame and how long did the project take before we got the copies, which I'm so proud to have a personal copy right here in front of me. How long did that project take?
I started in 2018
Okay.
in getting my ideas together in terms of the images and the locations and where or how I would like to start. I started doing research, which I went on the internet to search, okay, how do you start your own coloring book? And getting those ideas and putting them together. And I started getting that information, but I run into a little hiccup because now I needed an illustrator to get my ideas together, and I didn't want any person to just illustrate. I wanted somebody that can somehow get the ideas that I had in my head onto paper.
Right.
And it's very hard for people to know what you want because you just give them an idea. They might, pencil this. They could give you 3 different perspectives and it might not be the idea. So I started asking persons if they know any illustrators that would be able to help me with this project. And I started out with the first image, which is the Zoe image, which is the Zoe costume, and she's patterned off of the turtle dove.
Wonderful.
So I showed it to Julia Donovan for graphics design, and she said, I have an illustrator for you. He was married to a PV Islander, and he's lived here all his life, and I think he'll be able to get the ideas that you want out on paper. So I said, okay, hook me up. And then she called me one day and she said, guess what? He's here. I said, he is, and she gave him my number, which is David Trasher, and he called me and he said, hey, Gabrielle, I spoke to Julia and she said, you would like an illustrator to help you get your coloring book done. And I said yes, and we organized a meeting, and we had a meeting, and he told me I need to get my notes together, the order and the outline of how I wanted to take this coloring book. It's not just getting a coloring book. You just put a few images together and that's it. We wanted to tell a story.
Yes.
And we set about trying to tell that story specifically for the area of, which I label it Central Tortola.
Yes.
It's not because of geographics. It's just a position I decided to start with first for my first book. So I just call it Central Tortola because Rotown is the center. It's our capital. So I just label it Central Tortola. And we were trying to find the oldest pictures we could to tell a story of how the BVI was from I think we went as far back as the 1700s.
Wow.
Yes, and we tried our best to find photos. And one of the sad things is that we had to experience Hurricane Irma. So a lot of our pictorial products that we had, like pictures of buildings and different things that people have documented over the time, got destroyed because of Irma. National Archives was still not ready with their information, and that led me to HLSCC and Virgin Island Studies, and that's where I found Miss Bernadine Louis, and she's a lifesaver for me because she helped me now put the pieces of the project together. So now I had the illustrator, I had my images, I had the source that could make sure the history that I'm documenting was accurate. And that was important for us. That was our biggest mission was to make sure that this was accurate and to get it documented and to make sure that both adults and children could interact with the book. One of the things for me when I was digging up the information is that when you're going through the books, it's heavy stuff. And children, you wouldn't get a 6-year-old or a 8-year-old. I don't know if you could get a teenager to actually go through all that. So I said, okay, I want to make it as light as possible and still informative. And Miss Louis was able to help me get that done. And she just kept on me to make sure that the goals of the book and the mission of the book was met. And I think we did well with that.
Well, let me tell you from personal experience, having seen the book myself, that is one of the things that I absolutely love about it. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not just a coloring book, but it really illustrates and tells a story. It's not just a picture you're coloring, but you get a very detailed understanding of the history of the Virgin Islands, dated back to, Gabrielle saying, back to the late 70s, or early 70s, rather. We're going to get into a little bit more, but Miss Bernadine Louis, what made you want to sign on to this project?
Well, thank you, Ron, first of all, for having us here this morning to introduce this new initiative. And I really want to congratulate Gabby again.
Thank you.
It's an initiative that, you know, it takes a lot to do it and to do it correctly. But as Gabby said in her synopsis, she came to H. Laverty Stowe Community College, specifically to the Virgin Islands Studies Institute, sorry, looking for information. And I sat with her and I discussed with her what was the objective of the book. And one of the things that came out of it was the fact that sometimes it's difficult to marry information for adults versus children. And so, we discussed that and made sure in looking at the project that, that we didn't want to make it too heavy, right, and at the same time had to make it light enough that the kids would read it and look at the information. But that's how Gabby and I got together. She came to the Virgin Islands Studies Institute, and that's what we do. We are an interdisciplinary unit of the college. Our areas of responsibility are to acquire information, anything BVI, Virgin Islands, the history, the culture, even contemporary issues, which eventually down the road will become history.
Of course.
And we acquire. Sometimes the information is not there, so we have to do research. We support research. We do research ourselves. And then we document that information, because when persons, Gabby or whomever, researchers, anybody wants information on the British Virgin Islands, we're trying to collect it and to organize it and to make sure it's readily available. But I thought the project was really a good one. We have other history books out there, but we don't have a coloring book on the BVI.
There's nothing like this.
So I know something for the children to pique their interest, to get them involved in learning about our history and culture. So I thought it was a really good project, and I'm proud that where it has come, Gabby, and going forward, we'll see. I know there are other things in the pipeline.
Now, speak to that a little bit, Ms. Louis, as it pertains to the schools and children. Where do you see this book going for the Virgin Islands? What level of a tool could it be used for, whether it's research or just helping our students and adults as well to understand Virgin Islands history?
Yes, you hit the ball on the head. It's primarily helping the students, children, whether it be at a primary level, secondary level, and adults to understand and have some basic facts about Virgin Islands history in the book, and at the same time have fun, doing some coloring. But the facts are there. It was difficult trying to narrow it down and make it as straightforward and simple as possible, but it was all worth it. What I have seen, the product that came out, it really was worth it.
Wonderful. Now, Gabby, let's go into detail. Tell us about Book 1. What can we expect? What areas does it cover? I know Central Tortola, but explain to me a little bit about, in detail, as to what Book 1 actually covers.
Okay, Book 1 covers, which you're going to find in every series. I'm going to be introducing the national symbols or the territorial symbols. It would be I picked a main set. I didn't include every symbol. Okay. It would have the flag, it would have St. Osler's, which is the vigilati, what the vigilati represents. It would have the territorial board. It would have the territorial music. It would have the territorial dish. It would have the territorial tree, as well as it would have, even though we didn't label it that, the traditional Tortola sloop, which is indigenous to the BVI. And eventually I would hope that one day it would become a territorial icon as well, because the way the sloop was designed, it's indicative to the BVI. Indeed. That style and craftsmanship is actually indicative to the BVI, and learning about how the sloop is built and the design being specifically tailored to us, I think that was pretty awesome, and I wanted that to be in every series, because it has something that pertains to us specifically, and I think it should be ingrained in us when it comes to our national symbols. I didn't do the territorial dress because that can change, it varies. Right. And I think the song, I'm still trying to figure out how to turn the song into an image. Okay. So those, because I wasn't able to get those transcribed into an image, I left them out for now. Okay. One of my favorite images, I have a few, but one of my favorite images is Sunny Caribbean, because back in the 1800s, that was the first guest house in Tortola. And most people didn't know. I was passing by this building. And after Hurricane Irma, they were doing it got destroyed after Hurricane Irma. And recently they were doing the renovations. I peeped in one day and I saw the structure had bricks, like from the colonial period. So I said, okay, there has to be something about that building that's specific for it to be built that way. There's many buildings in Main Street that has that signature construction. And reading Donald de Castro book, Things I Remember and More, I learned a lot about Main Street that I didn't know about. Even though it was taught in Virgin Islands history, he had more. And that book, and Virgin Islands history has that book in their collection. And I was able to get a hold of that book and learn so much about historical Main Street. So the thing is, because I'm doing a coloring book and I wanted illustrations, a lot of buildings that I could have put in there, I don't have images for them going way back to the 1800s, the 1700s. So I had to make a decision and put what I had. What I had, I used, and hopefully one day, maybe we'll be able to come across pictures of those buildings that I wasn't able to touch on. There's one building that I really keep seeing every day on Main Street. It's the secondary school, but I don't have an image dating back to what it was originally.
Okay.
So I had to, like, as I said, make decisions. Some buildings I had, some I didn't have.
Well, one of the things that I think is so beautiful, Gabby, is that the story is not over yet. This is book 1, but we have some other stuff in the pipelines. Tell us about your vision for book 2. I believe that's going to be covering the eastern side of the island. Am I correct?
Yes, it is. And that's where Miss Louis comes in so much, because they have a wonderful documentation of the history of Eastern.
Yes.
And I want to sit down with her and we're going to come up with a whole idea, I think a unique idea for how we're going to present the history of the eastern part of the island. And it's a very intense history, especially when we know about Nottingham Estate, and that was a free estate.
Wow.
And there was also, there's the Fat Hogs Bay burial ground in that area, and the thing is that it's changed. Fat Hogs Bay has changed so much through the years. And then it goes on to the first church in Easton, and the people that came out of Easton. There's Mr. Fleming when they had captured his boat for smuggling and held his contraband, and he got the people together at Easton, and they went down to town and had they had town in uproar. That they had to call ships in from St. Thomas and stuff, and it just tells the history of how our people didn't like injustice or being mistreated. So I want to be able to play that out in a coloring book, and so that the kids could learn about it and learn about how feisty Beef Islanders are, and as not feisty in a negative way, but
very resilient people.
Yes, when it comes to injustice, we have a voice. We don't let anything or anyone oppose us from having a voice.
You could not have said that any better. Absolutely true, and I'm so proud. Let me just tell you guys something. One of the beautiful things about my job is that while I'm interviewing, I get to learn a lot as well. And I say this with no shame at all. A lot of these aspects that Gabby and Mrs. Louis are speaking about, they're before my time. But that's the beautiful thing about legacy and continuing on. In this book, book 1, we get to cover a myriad of Virgin Islands history and heritage, and I'm so proud to be sitting with these ladies today. Gabby, we have some upcoming book sales, some days that persons can come and purchase the book. Tell us about what activities you have coming up within the next few weeks where persons might be able to purchase your books, and how they could get in contact with you, whether it's Facebook and all that good stuff.
Okay. On July 18th, that's a Saturday, we're going to have the first book sale at Bamboo Share Lounge. And it's going to start from 12 p.m. and finish until closing.
Okay.
And we're going to have a few little surprises there with, we're going to have a few people speaking, and we're going to have a pottery display, because Bambouche is also known for their pottery. So I asked them if they could do a creative class for me on that day, because that's leading into one of the things that I want to do later on with the book, is have a art competition.
Okay.
Not just in coloring, but in performing arts, filming, and I forget what's the other ones. I think it's sculpting. There's a specific art for when you're doing sculpting
Okay.
and painting. But I want to get all culture into the arts section as much as possible. I know that the BVI has started this initiative, but I would like to see if my book could be taken much more forward, especially in the performing arts area and filming of our history as well. I think right now, our second location will hopefully be in Virgin Gorda.
Okay.
Hopefully, I didn't get to tell Miss Louis this yet, but I wanted to do it at HLSC in Fiji.
Okay,
Surprise,
that can be
surprise.
arranged.
Okay, I put on the spot. So, and those are the 2 dates I'm going to be doing for
Okay.
now. Hopefully in August I will be having another date to soon be to announce soon enough at the Watering Hole.
Okay.
You can contact me on Facebook, which is Color Me BVI History. You can leave me a message, or you can contact me on my email, which is 04baymax@gmail.com, or you can send me a WhatsApp on 284-544-2280, where you can just leave a WhatsApp and say, hey, I would like to purchase a book. I Relish in Naniki are also sponsoring me, where I can actually leave books there and you can purchase a copy if
Awesome.
you're interested.
Let me ask
Thank
you,
you.
Gabby, this is something that I just thought about. Oftentimes, as we go around our daily lives and we're working in different professions or areas, we never really think about legacy. It's not something that persons think about. They just do and they just go. I want to ask you this personal question. When you look at this book and you think of legacy, what does that mean to you?
Wow. You asked me that's a very personal question for
Yes.
me. I've never had to speak about it, but I think for me it's about me. I'm an example of legacy, because one of the things with BVI Landers is we are proud of our last names. And we quote our last names, and people may not understand why we quote the last names so much. But for me, when I did this book, it just showed me how strong my ancestors were and how intelligent they were, and whatever they were given, they made something out of it. And it was like they were given little and it became much. And that is what our legacy is. So when we quote, when you sit with another BVI lander, we automatically understand. But if you sit with someone who doesn't, it's just where we come from and who we have come from and what they have done to get us to this point. It's awe-inspiring. When I did the book and I saw where the old buildings, and they were abandoned, some were destroyed, but it was all in progress. And most people will have a negative donation towards progress. But I have to say it's remarkable, because look at it. If you look at the book and you see the images, and I know you have it in front of you,
Yes.
it's just remarkable to see what we did, what we came from, and what we did to get to a certain point, and what we keep doing to get to the next level. So it's not like we're stagnating or we don't have vision. And that's our legacy. It's just sometimes you have to take a step back, look back, and see, wow, this is what we did. And I think that's the legacy of our people. And I wanted to be able to put it in the book.
Amazing.
It was important for me.
That you did.
And you know, without realizing it, Gabby, it's part of legacy. Legacy for me is what you leave behind, you know, and what you support and so on. So what she has done, really, she's part of the legacy. She has taken that responsibility to help document and, you know, simplify the history for others to really understand and to, you know, to have that knowledge, especially, you know, the children, the students. And you asked me earlier on about, you know, the significance or importance for the schools, the education system. Down the road, I see this coloring book becoming, you know, part of that curriculum, hopefully. Even out there in the community, even if it doesn't get in the schools, it's part of the community. We have it. We we wanted to share it with our visitors as well as at home, you know, with us at home. So, you know, she's doing a really good job. I was just there as a support arm. I was happy when she came up to the Virgin Islands Studies Institute. Like I said, we provided the resource materials and make sure that the facts were could be substantiated and, you know, verified.
Yes.
And try to find other information that she needed. Some of the challenges, of course, she spoke to before. We talked about not being able to find images, you know, with hurricanes, and this happened from way back in those earlier years. A lot of information is destroyed by hurricanes and other disasters and so on and so forth. And that's why it's so important to document our information, and that's where we need to, you know, she has begun and we need to continue. And I personally want to encourage other young people to, you know, to do this, to get on the bandwagon and start digging about our history, learn about our history, document it, write it down, create more storybooks, coloring books, whatever, history books, and, you know, just take it from there and let's see where it goes. You know?
To go back to something that you asked earlier in
Yes.
terms of the process, I learned a lot about ISBN numbers. That means International Standard Book Number. I learned a lot about copywriting and self-publishing. As I can say, Hurricane Irma did a big number on not just the BVI, but other Caribbean islands that it hit, and some of the publishing houses weren't available or weren't in a position to help. So I had to do more research on how to publish a book by myself, get your ISBN number so that when it gets to libraries and other institutions, it could be properly documented. So I learned a lot about that, and I would, any other aspiring author that probably is struggling
Yes,
or
thank
don't
you.
know how to get their materials published and copyright. I do know the information. If you're interested in learning about it, you can contact me via the sources I mentioned earlier, and I'll be happy to show you how to get those things done, because that was those were some key areas
And an
that
eye-opener, right?
Yes, those are some key areas in terms of getting the book finished. It's like,
Yes.
I remember calling Miss Louis and saying, hey, I have a struggle. I don't have my ISBN number. I don't know how to get this copyright. You can't just put copyright in the book. It has to be properly
course.
Yeah, it's a process.
copyrighted. It's a process. And I was like, okay. So I even voiced out and I say, is there any way I can get into this, like do this on a professional level? And she even mentioned that she does have a company that she's been trying to get started. And if she said if I'm interested in doing it, I say yes, I like doing this, and I would like to help
Terrific.
anybody that doesn't want to depend on a publishing house and just wants to be able to publish their material
Amazing.
and get their voice out there. Because with publishing house, you know, it's what's going to work and what's not going to work. And you maybe have a vision and don't want people deterring you from your vision.
Indeed,
so
that's very
self-publishing
important.
always lends you to that opportunity to be able to voice your message without anyone deterring you from it.
Well, ladies, I am so, again, immensely proud of this opportunity, and we're running out of time. But I want to encourage the residents and friends of Virgin Islands citizens, not only in the BVI, Virgin Gorda, St. John, St. Thomas over there in the U.S. Virgin Islands as well. This is probably by far the most powerful book when it comes to Virgin Islands history, and I know I'm going to get in trouble for that, but the single reason is it lends itself to a creative process of learning about Virgin Islands history, and I'm so grateful to have the opportunity. I'm so proud of you, Gabby, and thank you guys so much for taking this opportunity with me. Congratulations, and we look forward to more amazing things.
All right. Thank you so much, and thank you for having us here today.
You're most welcome.
Thank
All
you.
right.